report. There we go. Through my streaming system, so comments and your messages would not be recorded. Your names would not appear on the recording. I'm recording on my streaming application, and so we can use this recording for more posts later in the future. 15 people online, that's great, so we can start. Good afternoon, everybody. We're going to look today at the warehouse management capabilities in Microsoft Dynamics 365 Business Central. This is an introduction to the overall architecture, features and capabilities of this rather complex module, arguably one of the most complex, together with manufacturing. And in fact, the two sometimes can be combined, although it's quite rare that an organization require both modules at their full capabilities. Those two can be combined, and really at that stage you push the capabilities of Business Central to, let's say, its limits. So today is not going to be a walkthrough of everything that Microsoft Dynamics Business Central can do with regards to WMS. We will need probably get 10 workshops to cover everything. We're going to look at the foundation, and there will be more advanced workshops in the upcoming weeks. So let's get started. Some of you might know me. I got ex-colleagues and colleagues on LinkedIn, and I've been very active on LinkedIn. But anyway, if this is the first time that you come across my profile on LinkedIn, my name is Alfredo Iorio. I work and live in London in the United Kingdom. I am a senior Microsoft Dynamics 365 Business Central consultant, and I'm also a Microsoft trainer. And today we are going to look at WMS in Microsoft Dynamics Business Central. Let's start with the architecture. One of the core components of the WMS module that can really help you as a consultant, or maybe a user, or maybe you help your own organization, right, as a user, it's the concept of warehouse ledger entries. I can see more people are coming. Hungary, Sri Lanka, that's great to have you here, guys. Thanks for coming. So as I was saying, WMS in Microsoft Dynamics Business Central, the first concept is the warehouse ledger entries. The warehouse ledger entries is an independent ledger that stores warehouse transactions, typically adjustments. They are called adjustments, even though we often refer to adjustments in business management as inventory, essentially movements that can write on or write off stock. We have the concept of adjustments for the warehouse ledger entries that are essentially what most organizations can see as inventory increase and inventory decrease, even though this ledger is independent. And we will see later today there is no direct link between an inventory transaction item ledger entry, the inventory sub-ledger in Business Central, and the warehouse ledger entries. The two are not directly linked. However, there is logic, of course, in the system to validate the quantity availability before posting, right? But the ledger is independent, warehouse ledger entries. The other fundamental element that we need to understand about warehouse ledger entries is that these are linked to the source document, right? So the source documents of the warehouse ledger entry depend on the complexity level that we set up on the location card. A warehouse ledger entry for simple warehouse management can be a purchase order, but for advanced warehouse manager, it can be a warehouse receipt, for example. So the link here is always between the warehouse ledger and the source document lines. It's never really about the warehouse ledger and the item ledger entry. Very important concept that if you are a lead consultant, a solution architect or technical architect, you really must understand this concept if you want to extend WMS module, if you are an ISV who wants to create applications for WMS, or if you are a lead consultant and need to advise your client about how to best set up this module, or even just to create reports, right? These important characteristics are fundamental for this module. The next element that is fundamental to the workflow, and it's more about functional design than technical design, is the concept of a warehouse request. A warehouse request in Business Central is a record of source document lines. The transactions in WMS are always at line level, never head level. We will see that in action in a moment, because of course we will have a live demo later. So when the location of the source document is set up with WMS features, Business Central creates this warehouse request line, and it's a hidden page. It exists in Business Central as a table, but the page itself doesn't show on the user interface. Some ISVs make it visible, this warehouse request, because it really helps people in the warehouse team planning warehouse tasks. But this is an important concept. Once you release a source document, for example, a sales order, which is a source document for a warehouse activity to take goods out, the warehouse request line in the table is automatically created. Again, you don't see it because it's not a page or a table that shows in the user interface. It's in the background. We will see that in action later today. So the last element of the WMS architecture is the warehouse documents, of course, and there are many warehouse documents in Business Central, and depending on the complexity level that we enable for the location, we have different, we can have more, and some look very similar. Even the document name may sound similar, but actually there is a document for every purpose. So these documents enable indirect posting of source document lines for locations where WMS feature is enabled. Indirect posting, because really warehouse documents are triggers of some kind of automation, right? To move source document lines. We never really post warehouse documents or warehouse tasks. We register warehouse tasks and we post source document lines. We will see again in action that later. So the next thing that we're going to learn today is about the levels of WMS complexity. You might be familiar with terminology such as basic warehouse or advanced warehouse or full warehouse, right? And there is no common definition of the warehouse levels in Business Central. Not even the Microsoft Learn website gave us an exact definition of these levels. And that's because you can mix and match different level of complexity for inbound and outbound. So I can have very simple WMS features when I receive items, but I can have very advanced and complex logic when I need to plan the picking and the shipments of goods out in the same location, so in the same site. And so this combination of features can really result in multiple levels. Some people say it's 6 levels, some people say it's more and less. It's less. For simplicity, today we're going to talk about level 1, basic, 2 advanced and full. So let's start with level 1. Level 1 warehouse is when you enable bin mandatory on the location card. And that is enough to create what we call level 1, essentially WMS, because that enables the warehouse ledger entry, that subledger that runs essentially on its own rules. What it does is level 1, very simple. Posting it's done by via the source documents, sales, purchase or production orders, right? And internal movements are handled by reclass journals. So as far as the user experience, this level 1 doesn't do really anything. It only allows you to create this separate ledger where you can manage your inventory transactions using warehouse movements. I can see more people are coming. Excellent. Nice to see you here. India, lovely. Nice to see you guys. That's great. Feel free to ask your questions, because I can see your questions and your comments live. So I'll do my best to answer. So level 1 is really very basic. There's nothing much that happens, but it allows you to use bins and to move items in a warehouse location. And so when do you want to use it? If you are a consultant or if you are a user working, using Business Central in your organization, you want to use level 1 in organizations where the warehouse team wants to operate on sales and purchase documents. And so there is no planning required, planning in terms of planning warehouse activities, right? Imagine a very like a small company with a simple warehouse organized with bins and layouts and zones. They have a bunch of purchase orders and sales orders, and the warehouse team can work actively on those orders, but then they can receive documents and items, and they can decide where to put these items using bins in the warehouse. That is still a very basic WMS. The second one is basic, and there seems to be a sort of an agreement in the Microsoft world about what basic means, right, in terms of WMS. Basic warehouse is when the bin mandatory location card is enabled and you have require put away and require pick. Now this is the simplest but also quite comprehensive setup that allows you to work with rather advanced functionalities. In fact, I don't really like using the word basic because you will see later that this basic setup can really do a lot for your warehouse team. This basic feature, basic configuration, does something really interesting. It allows a user to post via warehouse activity documents, and these are inventory putaways, inventory picks, and inventory movements, for example, for production consumption. It also enables warehouse documents for internal movements, the same inventory movement. And so these warehouse activities allow segregation of duties, which is the one of the most important use case that will allow you to identify whether your client needs that configuration or not. So when do you want to use basic WMS? You want to use it in organizations that wants to operate using warehouse documents, not source documents. So the purchasing team works on purchase orders and the warehouse team looks at warehouse documents that allow them to receive the orders. They might not even need to touch or to open the order. They don't have to with this configuration. The important part here is that the company must want to operate with a direct one-to-one link to sales and purchase documents, because inventory put away and inventory picks are warehouse documents that allow you to post purchase order, sales orders, and it's a one-to-one relation. So one pick, one order, one purchase order, one put away. It's always one-to-one. So really, should you use it or not? Well, you need to ask your client what kind of planning they want. So if basic planning or warehouse activities in advance, it's a nice to have, but it's not really a strict requirement. This will give organizations a good way to start, right, with WMS. For example, companies that use Business Central for the first time and they have a paper-based warehouse, they still manage to manage inventory quite accurately, and they want something more, but they're not ready for full-scale WMS. This configuration, in my opinion, is the best. And we will see that even though it's called basic, it can really do a lot. I see questions coming through. In a moment, I'll go through the slide and then I'll answer the questions. The next level is advanced, that I'd like to break into advanced and advanced plus. So what is advanced is when you set up bin mandatory on the location card, and you enable shipments and receipts in Business Central, not put away and picks, right? Require shipment and require receipt. What does that do? It allows you to post source documents via the warehouse documents. This times are warehouse receipts and warehouse shipments. And it also allows you to use warehouse documents for internal movements. This time we're talking about warehouse document. Now, what is the difference between basic and advanced if both allows you to post via warehouse documents and warehouse tasks? The critical difference is in this slide. And if you are a consultant, you really want to focus on this one. Advanced warehouse using warehouse shipments and receipts is for organizations that want to operate on warehouse documents while consolidating multiple orders or documents or lines into one warehouse activity. So consolidation as opposed to one-to-one, really the key here. So for example, if you want to prepare multiple orders into one shipment container, right? You ship your goods via a container, and one container can include 20 orders for from different customers, right? Or maybe you want to consolidate your receipt. You receive in a container, and in that container you have multiple purchase orders from multiple vendors. That kind of consolidation and planning of the consolidation is possible with this setup. It gives users the ability to plan shipments and receipts. And so that's why it works very well with couriers and shipping integrations. And so most ISVs out there who allow you to use couriers and shipping integrations and plan them in advance work with this kind of setup. And from here onwards, like this is the bare minimum setup for a shipping integration. And if you want to develop your own, you really want to work on this one. So the next one is what I call Advanced Plus, because there is a misconception here, is that when you enable require shipments and picks, you must also enable receipt and putaways. That is not true. The shipments and receipts can work well together. They don't require putaways and picks. If you do that, you enable the what I call Advanced Plus, an extra level on top of that, right? So Advanced Plus has been mandatory, require shipments and picks, and require receipts and put away. So now we have 2 documents for each movement of goods, right? So movement out, shipments and picks, movements in, receipt and put away, right? So this configuration does something pretty much similar to what we described before. It allows posting by the warehouse documents, receipts and shipments, but at the same time, it allows you to use picks and put away activities in between, right? And so it enables warehouse documents also for internal movements, warehouse movement. It also enables the use of warehouse picks for example, for production consumption, right? So here we introduce a level of complexity that is not always required, and I will tell you, use it with care, because this level, even though allows you to use more features, it's arguably more difficult to manage. When do you want to use it? You want to use it in organizations that want to operate on warehouse documents, like before, consolidating multiple documents, and at the same time using activities in between, such as the putaways and picks, right? So before I can prepare my container, I need to pick and sort my goods and then load the container. And one of the most important, if not the most important requirement for this configuration is the ability to separate planning and execution of warehouse shipments and receipts from picks and putaways, right? If this is an essential requirement, like I got a logistics team in charge of planning and execution of shipments or goods in, and I have a warehouse team leader who needs to organize the actual work in the warehouse about picking and packing and sorting, and you want separate logic and maybe separate teams to work on that, you need this kind of configuration, Advanced Plus. Lastly, and then we go into the demo, and then I'll try to see if I can answer some of your questions. We have what most of us consultants use and call full WMS. And full WMS is enabled when you enable directed put away and pings. And that also enables everything that we have covered before and more. But you cannot unselect any, let's say, of the warehouse features we described before. By clicking on that button, you enable automatically everything. And this is the limitation, and in my opinion, the only limitation about full WMS is that once it's enabled, the engine works the same for goods in and goods out. So you cannot have full WMS on picking and shipments, but let's say basic on receipt. something that you could do with the level before, right? So what is about WMS, full WMS? A lot. It's very rich in terms of configurations and setup. It allows you to post documents via using warehouse documents like before, receipts and shipments, but at the same time you can use picks and put away activities to move items. The difference with the features that are in the full WMS and before is that it does a lot more in terms of how you can arrange and move things in the warehouse. But really, in my opinion, the strongest case for full WMS, it's really about what you see in the slides, right? This is for organization where the warehouse team wants to operate on warehouse documents, they want to consolidate multiple documents, and they want to use activities like picks and put away. But at the same time, and this is probably the most important decision or let's say rationale behind WMS, does your client, does your team want logic or rules in Business Central to help users plan warehouse movements, right? If that is an essential requirement, like I want the system to tell me where to put away that item, really, and I want to use advanced logic and rules to get this one, let's say, done for me. If that is really an important requirement, WMS is really, in my opinion, the rationale behind it. There is you also have the ability to create rules to plan movements in advance with other levels, but this really takes it to a next level, really. And so we are going to look at a demo in a moment. We're going to look at basics, basic configuration, advanced and advanced plus, and full WMS with some real scenario. And I prepared a few documents and we're going to go through the concepts. Again, it's not going to be everything, it's very complex, but it will give you a very good idea. So let's see if I can pause for a moment to look at your comments. Lots of hello, good evening. There we go. So we have Julius say 2 questions at the moment for tonight. Do you see any beneficial AI feature for WMS? I read about inventory forecast extension. Do you know any customer that use that from your experience? What is the share of companies in the market using direct and put away warehouse functionality? Julius, great questions. Those are 2 very good questions. So number 1, beneficial AI features for WMS. It depends on what kind of features. In my opinion, machine learning for WMS plays a big role. And because in a typical warehouse, I'm not talking about warehouse features of a specific system or software. I'm talking about people working in a warehouse. The ability to use AI features, advanced artificial intelligence to predict and let's say inventory and to rearrange your bin rules, right? Rearrange your layout. That would be, to my opinion, a great advantage. So imagine you are a seasonal company, you are in fashion or in food, your warehouse, the layout, or even better, where you store certain items in the warehouse cannot be the same for the entire year, right? Before summer, you want to arrange certain goods in certain areas of your warehouse, but in winter, those items will be slow moving. Maybe you won't even have them as a category, and so that should be placed in another area of your warehouse. At the moment, there's something Business Central doesn't do for you, right? But machine learning, artificial intelligence should really help you create like dynamic bins, right? Replenish your pick phase based on forecasts, right, and sales orders. That is something that AI, in my opinion, will really benefit warehouse management system. Your next question, what is the share of companies in the market using directly put away advanced functionalities? I cannot really tell you a share of the market. It really depends on the partner, because WMS requires specific knowledge. And so you have warehouse consultants, people like me with many years of experience in warehouse management systems that work on projects. So when in my projects, advanced warehouse is almost always in scope. But that's only because the companies call me because of that, right? And so, but I believe it's a small portion because Business Central is for small and medium enterprises. And so if you're a small and medium, If you're a small company, you are highly unlikely to need this kind of, let's say, advanced functionality. If you're a medium enterprise working with goods that you have your own warehouse, directed put away and picks, in my opinion, can really benefit. And so another question, and then I'll move to the demo. We are particularly interested in implementing the first in, first out method for our picking process. That's $1 million question, Jerry. First in, first out, all the stock, where all the stock is dispatched. Potential challenges or common mistakes that we should be aware of implementing 5 for in Business Central. If you want to use first in, first out for your WMS, you will have a challenge because of what I said in my first slide. The warehouse entry and movements of items in a warehouse is done by essentially its own ledger, and its own ledger is not linked to the item ledger entry. So at the moment, Business Central doesn't allow you to use that kind of principle. It allows you to, in fact, to do the opposite. It allows you to create rules that allow people in the warehouse to move around in the way that the warehouse team leader, essentially warehouse manager, wants to do it. And there is a reason because for that, because WMS gives priority to efficiency in a warehouse. Efficiency in a warehouse may go against the concept of pick the first item first, like all this item first, if it's in a place where it might end up, let's say with my warehouse worker, taking a long route. So if you want to use first in, first out principle for WMS, you need to extend it. And the extension is not that complex, and I can give you a couple, if you send me a direct message, we can talk about it, right? Excellent, lots of questions, but I'm going to now look at the demo, and then we can go back, and if you've got more questions, I'll be happy to help you with the demo, with the questions. So let me change my screen, and now we should look at Business Central. There we go. All right, so let's start with the first example, and I created a list of purchase orders, and I saved it with a view. I mean, I'm a big fan of saving views here, just for demo purposes, for everything. I mean, if you don't use saved views and saved filters in the center, you're really missing out. But anyway, I'm digressing here. So what do we have here? We have a few orders for the same vendors on the same item. Again, I want to keep it simple because it's really about the basics today. And I have a few locations here. We start with Silver Warehouse Level 1. So my warehouse Level 1, if we look at the location, it's got nothing enabled here, and I got bin mandatory enabled. I can use the default bin selection and other things that don't apply here, even though I can enable them. So very simple. Very simple setup. If I look at my purchase order, I can see that it's released, and I have location Silver. I already set up the bin here because in this example, as a warehouse worker, I receive this consignment. I get the paperwork, I open the list of purchase orders. The moment I see that everything matches, all I need to do is to post the receipt, right? And I'm going to receive it. Here I can choose the bin where I want to receive this item. And notice that even though the order is released, I can change the bin code. It's done by design, right? Because as a warehouse, let's say, worker, I might not want to, of course, don't have the possibility to change the price or change the quantity, right? I can still, let's say, over-receive quantities if I receive more, right? And I can also change the quantity to receive, like here, for example. If this is a part shipment, I can receive it. All tasks related to the receipt that I can do, I can perform while the order is released. Again, by design, warehouse team don't have to reopen the order, right? So what I'm going to do now, I'm going to post and I'm going to receive it only. And now I'm going to show you that On the receipt, if I look at related, actually no, it's under order, it's under receipt. If I look at the warehouse entry, find entries, I will see that in addition to the posted receipt, item ledger entry and value entry, I have this little one here, which is the ledger that I mentioned before. And you can see it shows positive adjustment. This might be misleading, right? Because it might make you think, oh, someone has adjusted my stock, right? But not really, it's not an adjustment, right? It's a positive adjustment linked to its parent source document purchase order. This is the purchase order number, and this is the line number, right, on my order. So the link between this ledger, it's with the purchase receipt line. The item ledger entry does not mention anything about the warehouse entries, and the item and the warehouse entries don't link to the item ledger entries. Again, these two ledgers are independent. They are linked in terms of validation, but they're not linked essentially, right? And so I can even part receive, right? I can do it again and say, you know what? I reserved the first 45 here, and now I want to receive the remaining 5 here. Again, order is released, right? Nothing happens. I can post the receipt, and now my accounts payables team can take care of the invoice. Even though you can see vendor invoice here, if I had the invoice on as the paperwork, right, on receipts, I could even do that. That's entirely up to the organization to decide it. So nothing more than that. Level 1 WMS, nothing more than that. Very simple, but a way to get you started, right? And the concept on sales orders is essentially the same. So I'm not going to show you because it is essentially the same. So let's see what we have here with advanced. I believe that I have my green location. There we go, set up with advanced. Now, advanced, let's say, is not advanced plus, right? Advanced is set up with require receive and require shipment. And so these are now, in this location, allows me to consolidate and work on a different process. So here I got, let's say, one purchase order for the green location. I might actually create another one. Let me create another one because I will show you for another, let's say, supplier. And so I'm going to look at the location green. I want to create a second one because it will help me explain better. And so now I'm going to receive, let's say, Paris guest chair, and I'm going to receive Paris guest chair. There we go. And so now I'm going to release it. Okay. So now here I've got 2 orders on the same location, and now what I can do, I can use that consolidation. Let's say thing that we did before, right? So imagine these 2 be delivered in the same lorry. I can still do something like, go to home, and here I want to create a purchase, a warehouse receipt. But from here, I can also add, if I use prepare, get those documents. And here, I can pull more than one order into this receipt. And here you can see the hidden page that I mentioned before. You might remember that in one slide I said, look, there is this source document, warehouse request, right? This hidden page, this hidden table that only works on the background. Here it is. It's a warehouse request page, warehouse request table, and looks at source documents. And there are filters about the status, right? Only orders that are released can be pulled down into the receipt. There is 1 receipt per location. This is a warehouse receipt, therefore only type inbound, which means if I had a transfer order to be received, it would show here. If I had a sales return, it would show here too, right? And completely handle is no, right? Because of course everything which is not archived as a purchase order but has been completely received, right, will not show here. So now you can see that this consolidation, you can see it in action. 2 purchase orders, different purchase orders for different vendors in my loading bay. And it's my loading bay because I set up the location with my receipt bin, my loading bay. And now I only need, the last thing I need to do is to post the receipt, right? Number of source documents, now 2 out of 2. Because I don't need additional movements, these items in my loading bay now can be moved in my loading bay to an actual storage by an internal movement when and if the warehouse requires, right? So very simple. So this is the, let's say, the level 1, advanced. But I want to show you the advanced plus. The advanced plus, and feel free to stop me because during my demo sometimes I go too fast because I do this very often. It's part of my job. Sometimes I tend to skip. Let's say it goes too fast. But anyway, hopefully what I'm saying allows you to understand what we're doing here. On the red location, advanced, I have this advanced plus because I have the shipments and the shipments and the receipt option enabled, but I also have the put away and pick enabled, right? And so we skipped basic. We're going to turn to basic in a moment. With these two enabled now, what I need to do, I can do the same. So I'm not going to copy this to create another order, but I will show you the option here of the extra step. I'm going to create a warehouse receipt, right? And I'm still receiving in the loading bay because in my location red, I got loading bay 01. And if I post the receipt, the item stays in my loading bay, but the system automatically creates a put away for me, which is the extra step that I need to take to move the items from my loading bay into a storage. So with my green location, I can receive the items straight into the storage location from where they can be picked for an order. I don't need additional movements, right? With Advanced Plus, the loading bay is only for receipts and I cannot pick items in from the loading bay for customers' orders. I need to move them into a storage or a pick phase location. And I need to do it with my put away activities. So if I look at my order now, and if I look at related, now I will have the warehouse put away lines, which shows something rather interesting. You can see this is the automation that allows my warehouse to plan the work in advance. Now I know that I got stuff in my loading bay, but I also need to place it where it should be. And this is additional logic that I can create in the system. Bin content, I can tell the system that there is a default bin, which is not the loading bay. And maybe I want to do that because I want to do some quality checks in the loading bay. And only when and if the items pass quality check, clear quality control, they can be moved. Here, there are a lot of things that I can do here. I can start doing something like this, and I can look at splitting the line. And so I can plan in advance as opposed to posting directly here. You can see now I'm doing something a bit more sophisticated on this warehouse put away. 20 items to move from the loading bay, 10 items in one bin, 10 items in another bin, right? And I can keep working here, right? So I'm going to register the put away, and very important, I'm going to show you what happens. The put away is registered, it's not posted, right? It's registered. And let's look at the receipt here, because now if I look at find entries, I see another fellow showing up on this page, which wasn't there before, right? I do have my warehouse entry, I have my warehouse receipt, but I also have a posted warehouse receipt line. So this advanced and advanced plus creates another set of documents. Here we have a posted warehouse receipt line, which is a warehouse receipt. The source document is a warehouse receipt. It's not the purchase order. And so you will see how the warehouse entry now looks at the source document purchase order, but the warehouse document also shows a receipt, something that in my previous example, right, didn't show. So more complexity, more pages, more documents, but much more, let's say, flexibility and segregation of duties. My preferred approach, as I said before, is the Warehouse Basic. And this is about put away and picks only. And even though it says basics, it can do quite a lot. And one of the things that I want to show you today is the bin policy and the put away template, because up until a few years ago, this basic configuration and setup was somehow limited. It was always one-to-one, one document, one warehouse movement, but also it was one line on the sales or the purchase, one line on the receipt. Things changed a couple of versions ago, maybe more. I don't believe that consultants and users are really fully aware of what you can do with this setup. We call it basic, we shouldn't, because it really does a lot. So let me show you a quick example. You can also do a lot of things like bin selections, and the only limitation is that it doesn't really do cross-docking. But you can use capacity, you can use classes. Let me show you. If we look at the yellow location, I set up my bin content with some rules. Oops, content. I cannot type today. What's the problem? There we go. If I look at bin content for my warehouse yellow, I will show you that I set up my items desk to go to 3 bins. But I also set up a maximum quantity. So what happens now with maximum quantity, 5 pieces of each item in one of these bins? When I look at my order, I'm receiving 20, right? With this basic WMS feature and configuration, I can receive the items creating an inventory put away. Remember what I said in my slide, basic WMS work with inventory put away, inventory picks. The inventory put away allows me to receive and put away the item in one movement. If I click OK, the rules that I set up about where the item should go and the maximum quantities will be used in this routine, and I will end up with this inventory put away picks lines. Notice the lines here. So Business Central took one PO with 20 of these items and used the rules that I set up, and he found bin 3, 5, bin 2, 5, bin 1, and then the rest in the floating bin. These are rules that I created in my put away template. Again, something a bit more complex. We don't have time to discuss it today, but I will be happy to run another workshop on these functionalities. So simple warehouse management, but not really that basic, right? Not really that simple, because this is really something that it can give most companies with simple warehouses enough to run their warehouse, really. So what I'm going to do here, because of what I said before, you may have noticed a difference here. In this area now, in my screen, on my screen, I have the source document and the source document number. So it's always one-to-one. And you can do this in advance. So I'm going to delete this one, because what you can do, you can essentially run this one in autopilot, because this one, it's a report request page, which means that if you set it up right, you can run this one on a job queue. And so at the end of the shift, I mean, before the warehouse team starts working, Business Central can automatically create putaways and picks for everything that the team created, right, the day before. One way of doing it. Or I can actually use the functionality here to say automatically to create it, to plan it. Create inventory put away. It's a task, And now I don't need a purchase order, right? I don't need anything here. I can just run it for my location yellow, right? And say, you know what, create documents that allow me to pull down everything which is scheduled to be delivered today. And it will create one document for each PO. If I got the PO, I can actually run it from here, right? So this is a sort of a pull fashion, right? Where instead of opening the order, I can push and create the inventory put away. I can start from the inventory put away. Remember what we said before. If the warehouse request exists in that table and page that we don't see, right? But if that exists, which means the PO is released, right? Business Center will do it for me. And so now what I'm going to do, I'm going to look at inventory put away. And I can see my inventory put away and see it's been created in exactly the same way I created it before. I've also got things like splitting lines, reset to quantity to handle, because I can see, you know, I'm going to do 2 here, and maybe 2 here, and these 2 are 0, right? And now I'm going to part receive, right? And so quantity handled, right? And so the next one is a 2 here, only one of these, right? So nothing stops me from the warehouse team from posting line by line, right? Until I'm done. And this is in a real warehouse, it's something that might happen, right? You unload a lorry, and you post as you go. Again, basic warehouse, as we call it, not really basic, you can see. And if you talk about goods out, it does a lot more. So this is just a few examples. So 12 minutes, I'm going to show you how to, so what you can do with full WMS. So just one thing you can do with full WMS, and I have a white location of full WMS. Full WMS is when we enable this little feature here. Once this is on, we have essentially everything. And you can see these are grayed out. I cannot disable this one. Everything is on. I can use a put away worksheet so that I can receive everything like one container in my loading bay, and then use the worksheet to split and to even consolidate or to segregate warehouse work. I can use cross-docking, and the put away template will work pretty much, you know, in the same. The thing that full WMS does really is that it allows me to work on with so much flexibility. So in this case, I'm going to receive the same item, but I'm going to receive it in pallets. And this is something that full WMS does very well. It allows you to manage warehouse transactions in multiple units of measure, while Business Central allows you to create inventory transactions in multiple units of measure. If you need complexity around multiple units of measures for your warehouse, you need you might want to use this, let's say, full WMS. So I'm going to use a different method. I'm going to use a warehouse receipt, create a warehouse receipt, just to show you the flexibility here. I'm going to create it for my WMS, and here I can tell system get me what's scheduled to be delivered today. It finds the correct loading bay, even though I could change it, right? And now what I'm going to do here, I'm going to post the receipt of the actual pallets. Number of put-away activities created 1, because I don't have the put-away worksheet enabled. If I look at warehouse put-aways, I will see my put-away for my location, white WMS, and you can see that now Business Central has found and the place where to take the pallet from the loading bay to the actual bin here. And that's because if I look at the bin content, and if we filter by location white, I will show you what I did in preparation for this demo. One thing that this feature does exceptionally well is it can handle multiple warehouse, different logic, so advanced logic for warehouse activities. And you can see that, unlike what I have with my other location, now I have rules for the same item in different units of measure. So I tell the system, I set up the system to have a maximum quantity of 10 pallets in one bin, and then the rest is about pieces. But because I am receiving pallets, the logic that I created, the rules that I created, allowed me to receive 10 pallets. Receive it of course in my loading bay. You can see it shows that I have, right, the let's say 20 pallets equivalent to 80 pieces, right? You can see it's in pallets, but also finds the rules that allow me to store maximum 10 pallets in this bin, and so maximum 10 pallets in one bin, right? And then after that, so it takes 3 here, and so then it moves to the next one and moves to the next one until it finds, right, the floating bin where there is enough capacity to put the rest of it, right? Here I can do something like to change unit of measure. So you know what? I don't want to put away pallets here. I want to break down this pallet and put it away here. And so instead of 56, I'm going to say put 50 here, and then split line, and then I'm going to do the same here. You can see how much flexibility I have here. And so now the break bulking operation essentially can happen in the background, where users can receive pallets, can put down the pallets, can inspect the pallets, can put away full pallets on somewhere, and they break down some other pallets and place them, the individual units, in another place of the warehouse. So the concept of directed put away in picks is really about the business center directing users to certain areas to do certain things. So if planning is essential, right? I'm going to register the put away, everything is registered, right? And I can keep going, okay? I got a set of sales orders here that I can show you, and inventory movements, but hopefully with this demo I've already show you pretty much like the foundation, right, and the possibility and the things that you can do with WMS. I will arrange another workshop to talk about full WMS and advanced WMS, and to show you break bulk and cross docking, put away templates, put away worksheet, pick worksheet, and it's so much. Work with capacities, work with special equipments. It's really a versatile module. So a few minutes. Let's see if we got more questions. Lots of questions, in fact, and it's great to see that so many of you are asking questions. What is your advice for an accountant seeking to transition from project management, SAP Oracle project implementation to a finance consultant? So if you're an accountant and you want to transition from let's say from other products into Dynamics 365, my recommendation would be go through the qualification, get a certification, because by studying the material you will learn the difference in terms of architectures and features, the wording and the functionality, and then try to get an entry-level job, maybe at a new partner or an end user. As long as you master the accounting principles, learning the features and the pages it's the easiest part. So if you want to change industry from SAP Oracle to Microsoft, the transition is not that difficult at all. Julius, thanks very much. Great to have you. Very pleasure. Mohammed, thank you for that. Jari, thank you for clarifying the answer. Good idea to use artificial intelligence, machine learning. Thank you for that. Great section. Thank you. Lovely. That's great. Very good. Well, it's 5 minutes before the end of this meeting. We could talk about WMS for the next day, probably. There is so much to see. But hopefully you managed to get an idea, or even better, hopefully I managed to explain to you what I wanted to explain to you, today. And it's really, Julius, is there a possibility, sorry, one more question. Standard to follow the document chain from receipt to put away, or vice versa? There is. With order tracing, you can actually see it. Julius, you might want to put together like a nice dashboard, and Power BI, it's great for that. But you can follow the document chain from receipt to put away, and vice versa, because the put away will be linked to the receipt, right? And the receipt will have the put away essentially. So the good thing about this architecture that allows you to that the links warehouse documents, warehouse entries to source documents and not item ledger entries, it's for traceability purposes essentially. And so I agree with the design in principle, even though some people may argue that, well, the absence of a link between warehouse entries and item ledger entries might end up, creating problems with first in, first out. And there is a risk of creating problems with first out. But really, the goal is traceability and warehouse efficiency. Stock rotation is something that can be managed, separately. But yes, following the document chain from receipt to put away, absolutely, because the source documents is always included in every warehouse entry, the warehouse subledger. And you can also use things like registered warehouse put away, registered warehouse picks, posted warehouse receipt, posted warehouse shipments. There is always a link across different documents. Whether you want to use Business Central or do it in Power BI, that's entirely up to you. It depends on the complexity, right? Ibrahim, thank you, great session. Thank you for showing up, guys. 30 people online, mid-August. Well, most of consultants are enjoying their holidays. It's so great to see so many of you here to talk about something so specific, right? WMS, not the most exciting topics, some may argue. I hope you really enjoy this this demo. And again, please send me your questions, send me your comments, and look out for the next workshop in a couple of weeks. I might prepare something about advanced WMS against your basic WMS, if you like. Excellent. Thanks all. Have a good rest of the evening. I'll see you next time.